Are we starting? Yeah. Namaskar. Welcome everyone to today's session on MSMEs and net zero. This session is being conducted by the Net Zero Aayam of LUB Bharti. LUB Bharti, a nationwide organization serving the cause of MSME with a membership of over 48,000. This Aayam is a focus group, the need for which came up with the net zero targets that India has taken. Many countries have announced their net zero targets recently, so has India. 2070 is the year by which we plan to be net zero. A very challenging task indeed for a developing nation like ours. Looking at the enormity of the task, this focus group has been created to understand the problems of the MSMEs in this space. If India has to reach 2070 as a net zero nation, it will not be possible if only the large or the very large adopt and evolve to sustainable practices. The MSME must adopt the sustainable practices as they are the major contributors to the GDP of the country. And they are also the major supply chains to the large and the very large. Without them adopting to green and sustainable practices, India will not be able to achieve this target of 2070. Understanding this requirement and trying and to unlock the potential that this green space offers in terms of opportunities, business opportunities, this group has been created in LUB Bharti. Of course, there will be problems, and this focus group will focus on the problems that Laghu Udyogs will face in this adoption and evolution. Today, we have with us a very valuable member of the group, Ashuji, who is from Jaipur, D2 company. He has an experience over 15 years as a consultant on sustainability. He is a certified energy auditor, certified by the Bureau of Energy. He will be taking us through a presentation where we present awareness on net zero. We present problems that MSMEs would face reaching this space of net zero, adopting to sustainable practices, and the possible solutions. So I would invite Ashuji. Welcome, Ashuji. Please continue with the presentation.
Thank you so much, and namaskar to everyone. For this opportunity, I would like to thank LUB Bharti to give me a chance to present my experience on this very important subject of net zero or the carbon neutrality. So I would urge all of my viewers for the next 1 hour. I'm pretty sure you will going to learn so many new things that what is going in our country, what is going on the worldwide, and how it is going to impact to our business if we do not act at this moment, how our business will be affected by that. And that is a very important show today. So that's I want to request that this webinar is very so I'm going to share my screen right now. I hope my screen is visible. Can anyone confirm? Jayanti ji, can you confirm me? Is that the screen is visible?
It is visible. Please continue.
Okay, please. Okay, thank you. All right, so this is today's topic, introduction of net zero and the role of MSME. I hope everyone is aware about this word net zero because the entire world is talking about the net zero and the carbon neutrality. What does that mean, and how does the MSME impacts on it? So this is something I'm going to share today. and I represent a company called D2O Design to Occupancy based out in Jaipur. So, what is the table of entire content of my presentation? Because I'm going to, as a basic brief, as a layman person should understand. So, I will start with introduction and outline. Then I will cover the current scenario and the climate action plan. The third is the net zero target by India and other countries also, and what exactly the net zero mean, and why MSME are so important in case of the net zero, because our country leadership has taken a target to become net zero. How it is going to impact on the business, that will I'll talk. And I will also talk about the current scenario and the emission by MSMEs, challenges in achieving net zero, because as an MSME there is always a lot of challenges come. I'll talk on that. I'll also talk a brief on strategies for achieving the net zero emission, how your business, your unit, your industry can target for net zero emission. Ninth, and not a very important topic, because who are the exporter to their materials in the countries like European Union or the US, there are the several mechanism are coming up which you need to comply, otherwise they do not able to work with you. So I'll talk brief on that, CBAMs, SBTI, GRI, etc. The next, I will talk on the technology adoption and innovation as well. And the last, not the least, advantages of transitioning to net zero. What are the benefits as an industry? What are the benefit as a country? And what are the benefit as a human being to become net zero? And of course, in the last, I will also go through the one video which will explain you the entire crust of it. So thanks again to Laghu Udyog Bharati, and this is the very unique Aayam they have created to aware the maximum of their member, like awareness, advocacy, and support in action. Because if India wants to be a net zero, India wants to be carbon neutral, it cannot become without the support of MSME. And that's a great initiative by Laghu Udyog Bharati. And today I'm, because of this initiative, which is Aayam Net Zero Aayam, I am going to present today about this. So why it is net zero and what happening? All of us are pretty aware that there is a global warming, because earlier people think the global warming is not real, but I'm telling you, this subject global warming we are studying since class second, third class. But now we need to understand the temperature of our environment has been increased and is increasing day by day. Please understand as the with a small way. Like if you are have a if you like we have a human body, and the human body temperature, normal temperature is 98, but 1 degree 2 degree Fahrenheit, when that increase we get fever. Similarly, our earth, the temperature is rising since the industrialization happened in 1850s, and the temperature has been risen by the so that's the target, that should not be risen by 1.5 degrees centigrade by 2030. What happen if the temperature will rise? All the glaciers will melt. We will face a lot of floods in our country or in the world. We will see the variation in temperature. Like I belong to the Rajasthan, I can see there is a lot of variation happening in every night. One day the night temperature is 20 degrees, sometime 25 degree in the summer season, and one day it is a 45 degree. And these variation impact a lot in our entire ecosystem. So why this global warming is increasing? We all know the problem of rising sea level, more heat waves are coming up, more water scarcity. Like recent news came up, Bangalore was ran out of water. Similarly, Chennai doesn't have the water. So these news were not very common earlier, but now because of the global warming, because of the climate change, this problem is happening, and in upcoming days it will be the bigger problem. So we need to understand why this global warming is happening. So why this is happening? So we all know that because when we burn any fuel, it emits some gases. And what is that gases? That gas call is greenhouse gas emission. So greenhouse gas emission, most of the people think only the carbon dioxide emit. No, other than the carbon dioxide, there is a methane, CH4, N2O, HFCs, NF3, SF, so many gases. But of course, major role play by the carbon dioxide. When you use 1 kWh of electricity, it is directly equivalent to 900 gram of carbon emission. So you can emit how many carbon emission we do in environment, and of course it impacts to our uh, earth temperature because of global warming, and that is something is critical. We want to grow, we want that country should grow, we want the country should have more manufacturing facility, we want the country should have more industries, but not because we have only one single earth to live. So we want a sustainable growth. Or now the government, multinational companies, every company want, I want to work with those company who is doing a sustainable development. If someone was not following the sustainable development, I will not, or we will not able to perform. And that is the reason this GSG emission is very, very important by any factory, any industry, any company. And how does it define? So it is very important slide right now. By the protocol, which is the greenhouse gas protocol, there is a three type of scope defined: scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. So how, because as an MSME, how do you understand what is your scope carbon emission, what is another scope carbon emission? So scope 1 is mean the company facility. If you have a diesel set in the company, whatever you are burning at the company level, at the your factory level, that is called scope 1 carbon emission. Like if you have a diesel set and you are burning a fuel, you are making a fuel electricity with that, so that is your scope 1 carbon emission. Similarly, if you have a company vehicles who are using the petrol or the diesel, they are comes under the scope 2 category, scope 1 category. Similarly, for the scope 2 category, if you are purchasing energy, electricity or the gas from outside somewhere, that comes under the scope 2 category. And scope 3 is the very, very bigger, because whenever you manufacture anything, you need raw material. So you procure the raw material with the different sites, and then you make the product and you supply to the different your customer. And that is the reason scope 3 is a very vital role. So whatever the transportation, distribution, processing of the sold product, or the leased facility, franchisees, capital good, purchase good services, employee commuting, all marketing efforts, whatever your employee is commuting, that comes under the scope 3. So scope 3 is a very higher side, and scope 1 and scope 2, these are the three scope of carbon emission. Any single small facility also can calculate their carbon emission. And why I'm talking about this, I'm sure this is something new for most of you, but this is the requirement for many multinational companies now. They want their manufacturer or their supplier should give me a carbon emission under the scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. And this is something I'll give the more detail about it. So what is net zero? What is net zero? Net zero, because like our prime minister also having a given mission to become carbon net zero by 2070, to become India should have that. What does that mean? So there is an intergovernment panel on climate change, which every year that they have a COP conference happen. I'm sure most of you have heard the climate of parties, the conference of parties of that conference happen. Like last year it happened in Abu Dhabi, in Dubai. Before that it was in Egypt. So that conference, all the leader from every country comes there, and they discuss that how this carbon emission can reduced by from different country, and what are their targets, how what their targets are getting achieved. So net zero means whatever the carbon emission we are doing right now. Of course, they have a baseline with that. We talked baseline in India 2005 level. Whatever the carbon emission India was having in 2005 in that year, that should be zero by the time of 2070. That is the net zero movement to become the net zero India. So whatever we are emitting, we should be making it as zero. Now how can it possible? Because the construction is happening, the manufacturings are happening, the demand is increasing. How we can become net zero? This first question always come. So I will also guide how we can implement, what are those strategies we can implement to become net zero. So this is, I want to give the background where India is. This is the 2022 data, and you can see the China having the most emitter of carbon dioxide or the GSG emission in the worldwide. in the worldwide, 15.7 gigaton carbon emission. You can imagine that. The China, of course, because, and similarly, the United States is around 6 gigaton, but India is also on the third stage right now. You can see the 3.9 number. We are more than that. So, because India is a big country, the population is the largest, and we are the growing country. So, our emission will be increasing every year to year. So that's the reason we need to come up with the policies that whatever the construction, whatever the manufacturing is happening, they need to comply with that method. So the carbon emission should not go as usual. It should be limited by that self. That is the worldwide compliance are coming up. So that's the reason I want to. India is the third largest right now, but of course we are increasing and we can be after China also in some time. So this is the COP26 happened, the Conference of Parties. That is in Glasgow when our Prime Minister went there, and they took up Panchamrita for that. That what is Panchamrita? But of course, before that, everyone heard that net zero by 2070 India should have. Already, most of the countries, like more than 70 countries, has promised to become by 2050 as a net zero country. Net zero means whatever the emissions they are doing, it should be zero with some baseline data. That is the reason we need to understand what would bring down emissions to zero or those absorption. So now they have absorbed a lot of policies what related to that. I will talk more on it. And this is the removal of the gas from the atmosphere, because if they don't do this, is estimated by the climate change panel, by 2030 the temperature will be risen by 1.5 degrees centigrade, and by 2060 or 70 will be higher by the 4.5 to 5 degrees temperature, and that is impact a lot in our on our ecosystem. So this was the five Panchamrita, which is the Panchamrita by the Prime Minister. So this was in Glasgow, and what lot of people always think to 2070 is very far. We will see what happened by that time, but that's not actually the 2070 is a target. We need to understand what is the 2030, which is just after 6 years. After 6 years, a lot of business will get impacted if they don't do it. So we need to understand what it is actually. This is the first national determination contribution in Paris Agreement. There was the first document submitted by India to the entire worldwide, which is on a climate change, Paris Agreement, which called the 33 to 35% reduction of emission intensity of GDP by 2030 compared to 2005. That means whatever the emission intensity we were doing in 2005, we need to be 35% more efficient by the 2030. And target was that 45% in the recent COP26. So you can imagine it wasn't 2016 target was 33 for 35. Now in the Glasgow the target has been increased to 45%. So first target was India non-fossil fuel energy capacity to reach 500 gigawatt by 2030. So you can imagine right now we are around 180 to 190 gigawatt, but it will be increasing in the next 6 years three times on that behalf. Similarly, the India will meet 50% cumulative electrical power installed capacity by 2030 non-fossil fuel. It is used right now the 70-75% power which is coming right now from the coal power plant, but it should be 50% by the non-fossil fuel. Is a big target. So you can imagine that how the impact the impact will happen, because we need to move on the non fossil fuel energy majorly, because our industry, we are talking about MSME. In that industry we use maximum time coal energy, but we need to move towards the solar, wind, or those kind of policies. Similarly, now to 2030 India will reduce the entire carbon emission by 1 billion tons from now to 2030. That is also third our Panchamrat item. The fourth is the big, I think that the people doesn't talk on that, but of course they think 2070, but 2030 India will reduce the carbon intensity of its economy to less than 45%, which is a huge target. And I would say that's a reason we have seen in the last 1 or 2 years. And of course now these days everyone is talking about reduce the carbon emission of the industry, otherwise not able to those product, whatever you are manufacturing, we need to disclose that. And 2070, which is no, which is actually the far away, but that's a target, the net zero emission by India. Whatever we were emitting in 2005, that should be zero by 2070. That is the national determination contribution. And every year, the government has to share the report what they have done to doing implement to achieving this target. Now let's talk about the MSME, because why our MSME impact a lot and how why we contribute. We all know that more than 633.9 lakh MSME in India, and 99% of total MSME qualify as micro enterprises, that up to the 630 lakh enterprises. And 90% of the business worldwide in India alone account by MSME. There, we are and MSME are responsible for 30% of country's GDP, and we employ 110 million workers and 49% share in export. So you can imagine, if MSME grows, India grows. If India grows, then definitely MSME have to grow. So concurrently, India MSME generate around 100 million tons of carbon emission annually. So you can imagine how much we contribute, because that's amount the 100 million tons of carbon dioxide as per the 2018 report by Center of Science, Technology and Policy. And that is the reason, if 2070 to become a net zero, MSME has to play a role. Without MSME not doing anything, the India can't achieve this. And that's the focus the government, LUB, Udyog Bharati, all organizations are talking about, how we can become net zero. So why MSME important in all aspect of net zero? So let's talk about the emission intensity, because we have a factories, we have a industries, a small scale industry. Those industries are having a higher emission because the technology is not very efficient in that. Of course, our emission intensity is lower side when we talk about compared to the larger industry. Supply chain impact, mostly many MSME operate within a supply chain of the large company. Like most of us delivering to the multinational companies, we are manufacturing a product and giving to some big larger company, and those larger company has already made their plan to become net zero, and they want their scope 3, which is the supply chain, should also make their plan. So that's the reason, your if not your customer has asked yet, I'm sure in the next one day of after a month, that will ask that please submit me your plan for net zero. If you are not submitting, we will not able to work, and that's the reason supply chain impact a lot. The third is the access to finance and resources. So providing MSME access to finance, technology, this is something is more required to the MSME level, because when you do the any investment in the clean energy, you need finance, and you need a proper technical guidance, you need a proper resources, and that is something the net zero plan should have. And the diversity, MSME having a lot of diversity of sector. You talk about textile, manufacturing, agriculture, construction, all kind of material, though it's all diversity of the sector. Local economic development, of course, supporting MSME transitioning to net zero practice can foster local economic development. We can create a lot of green jobs in the market, impact on the climate resistance, and potential for innovation. Of course, MSME is the key area where the innovation happen, and this area is very emerging in the worldwide. Like I can see the several startup is coming up. They are either ecopreneur. In all of the big platform, you can see they have the environmental category always. And how these environmental category startups, what we can do is start. This is for the net to become net zero. Those innovation is required. Similarly, the global reach, with the increasing globalization, MSME plays a vital role in international trade, because the export is huge. So MSME is very important for the net zero plan for India. So what recent this survey done by SIDBI and the DNB Sustainability, they did a survey in India. So they did among the MSME for sustainable development. They asked why the sustainable development required. So you can imagine that this was the answer. 50% of the MSME asked that what is the incentive, what is the monetary incentive if I adopt any sustainability, because I'm running an industry, it is very low cost margin already, and if I go for sustainability, I need to put a lot of investment. what incentives I will get. 1 in 4 MSME have no internal expertise regarding sustainability. Out of 4, the 1 MSME, you can imagine now. 8 in the 10 MSME feel to improve awareness of sustainability. A lot of people are not aware. They still think the green means the green factory means the more landscaping. That is doesn't mean the green factory. So what is the green factory means is what are the policies are. Similarly, 73% of MSME in India are yet to set their sustainability target. So you can see what is the how much the difference and potential right now. Only 1 in the 10 MSME are recycling more than 75% of water consumption. You can see big industry, they have the recycling plant, they're doing the water recycling. But if you go in any MSME, out of 10, only the 1 MSME is doing that kind of the recycling of the work. MSME facing a pressing requirement of technical support and capital to embrace sustainability. And these are among top of their 3 challenges. And of course, last not the least, the cost reduction via efficiency gain. And that is something the sustainability. So this was a survey done. So you can imagine how much the potential of sustainability in the MSME sector and how we need to do. Now the challenging, what are the challenges to become net zero or achieving net zero? This is something always after the survey, after the policies review, it comes. The first is the direct is financial constraint. Of course, many MSME are not fully understand the importance of reducing carbon emission, and they have the lack awareness of the new technology. They think that same motor which they purchased 10 years back or 15 years back, they will do with the same motor with the binding they are using. But they don't think if I improve this motor, if I replace this motor with the new technology with the i4 i5, I need finances for it. So financial constraint is something is required. And of course it's one of the biggest challenge. The second challenge is the awareness is also not there. Lot of time we are busy in the same kind of the work, we don't think in a different direction, that if I invest something, if my return of investment is coming in a year or 2 years, that is a good investment for me. So awareness and education is also very much required to achieve net zero in MSME, which actually this Laghu Udyog Bharati today is doing it. The third is the lack of technical expertise. This is also a big issue because we have so many MSMEs in India and we have the lack of technical expertise to assess carbon footprint. A lot of time, because if something comes up to you, you think that we can't do, we need to hire a consultant, we need to hire someone to do it, they will charge very hefty money. So but this is something the technical expertise or training required at the MSME level, because it is not a rocket science. And that is something our vision as a Laghu Udyog Bharati Aayam for net zero, to train people to calculate their carbon emissions also. Infrastructure constraints, of course, this is also, there is unreliable electricity grid, there is limited resources for energy, renewable energy sources. So this is also in some state that there is a policy for renewable, some state doesn't have the policy for renewable. So this is infrastructure constraint is also in most of the states in India. Supply chain complexity is a big problem because MSME are often complex supply chain. They purchase from different 500 vendors. So you will be confused, how will I calculate my scope 3 carbon emission? So this is also big problem to achieving net zero. Market access and consumer demand, because if there is a growing consumer demand for sustainable product, MSME may struggle assess market that prioritize. So because there is a lot of demand will increase for sustainability, though you will not able to prioritize that environment friendly product is required, how this capacity will meet up. So this is also the consumer demand which we feel. Capital access to limited access to capital. MSME always struggle to assess financing our sustainability initiative, like us due to the size, lack of collateral. Because when you go to the bank and you say, sir, I want to become a sustainable industry or sustainable industry factory. So of course there is a if you looking for the loan, so they will ask for the collateral, limited credit history. So of course the government. So this is the presentation which of course government is also aware what are the actual challenges to become net zero. And there's a data availability and management, which is the biggest thing which I have seen while working with MSME to make their carbon emissions inventory. So there's a lack of data management system because a lot of things they are doing just on their experience basis. They don't have a tracking system. They don't have a data monitoring system. They don't have any automation system. So this is also the big issue in availability and the management. So I'll talk on that. But what are the benefits? Like if you adopt as an industry to become net zero or to adopt the compliances of the sustainability, the first thing, of course, cost saving, which I am talking about, because you need to understand your major cost goes in on energy, and energy is major emitter for the carbon emission. 1 kWh is around 800 to 900 gram carbon emission. So you can imagine, if you optimize your energy cost and resource consumption by adopting renewable energy. A lot of time the people think renewable is very expensive, but now you need to understand it is not very expensive. It is a very good investment right now. So we need to go, but initial cost is required, because MSME always play. We don't have a captive investment. We don't have a capex. We don't have a capex investment. So that is a cost saving, but you can do if you implement the renewable, if you implement the energy efficiency, your cost will save on monthly basis. The second is the enhanced brand reputation, which is very good, very much. Now everyone is talking about sustainability. Everyone is talking about uh, when you talk about the brand. Like if you same like you, if they have a 5 companies and working with the multinational company will prefer that brand which is talking about sustainability. And the third, which is assess green finance, which is I want to highlight more, because this green finance is something is coming up in a big way in India. Same like COP conference, every developed nation they make a funding that whatever the developing nation, if they implement the green features, if they go for the less carbon emission, they should get the funding from developed nation, like a lot of World Bank, ADB, GIZ. Whatever the funding coming in India, they are majorly related to the climate change. So climate change, there will be for MSME, of course, this green finance will come. So I'll talk more on it, but this is one of the area, the green finance, and we talk about what if you don't comply this. Because if you think that this is very complicated, I don't want to it. So I want to highlight, because if you want to stay in your business, you have to do it. Otherwise, it is, if either you are getting incentive or not, doesn't matter, you will get the fines, penalties, because non-compliance with environmental regulation. There will be the net zero standard coming up in a year. So where you will have to have your entire business operation will disrupt. Second, the export regulation. I have a one slide for this. Now I'm sure most of you are exporter. Do you might be getting a mail from your customer from the Europe countries like German or any country, Germany and anyone. They are talking about regulation compliance, that they restrict MSME in the worldwide if you are monitoring your carbon emission. If you are not monitoring or accounting your carbon emission, they don't allow you to part an export business. So this is also the regulation coming up. Limited market access, non-compliance with net zero practices limit MSME access to lucrative market. So of course the market access will be limited for you if you are not complying with this. And if you want a global reach, you have to comply it. And the market competence, when we talk about, so non-compliant MSMEs risk losing market share and profitability. So this is already happening in the last 1 year. I have seen with my 10 or 15 customer who were not doing it, they were not able to participate in that bids which they were applying earlier. So this is happening. So that's the reason I'm telling you, I think it's a great time to do it. So what are the business opportunity in it? What is the in net zero space? Because as an MSME, don't think just for your factory, think in the out of the box to start something, a business in that category. We have seen the biomass. We were a lot of time the people are talking about the biomass. We can have so much biomass from the agriculture waste, and we can generate energy with that. With the carbon capture technology, a lot of innovation is happening. How we can capture the carbon directly from the environment. Some innovation should happen. Similarly, for the compressed biogas, when we talk about the compressed biogas plant, CBG, what we talk about the waste recycling system, because waste is a wealth, and there's a lot of startups are coming up in the waste. Either it is either is electric waste when we talk about, either we talk about the food waste, how we can convert the entire food waste into the energy. That is also happening. Electric vehicle, we have seen the penetration in the last 4 or 5 years in India, how the electric vehicle movement is going on. electric infrastructure is going on, and many more green sector. I'll talk about the treatment of plants, like the I have seen the STP in a big way now. Every factory is having that. So many green skill already. The government of India having their is green skill council for jobs, and the green skill council is also one of the council where there are so many expertise are required, employment is required, the people should be a skill sector in that green kind of thing. So there's a several business opportunity in it. So what exactly the next step we need to follow? So first step for any MSME, there is no rocket science to become net zero. First step to monitor your consumption. Of course, whatever, monitor your how much energy you are consuming. Once you monitor it, you should do the improvement in it. Please understand, if you put your money in any bank, you will the payment will be double in 7 or 8 years. If you are investing something in your factory, like if your motor is 10 years old and they are consuming like 10% of electricity, and if you replace that motor which consumes very less in that way, so you should definitely replace it. So that is the energy efficiency improvement. I have done energy audit for several MSMEs, and I feel sometimes the why the people are not doing so much wastage is happening in energy, and we should improve, we should reduce the energy bill of our factory. So energy efficiency improvement is first and most important step, because you will get from the wastage, your emission will require come less, and you will definitely have a cost saving also. Second step come whatever after the savings your carbon is having, you calculate your carbon. Then after you can do the offsetting, either you do a plantation somewhere, either you do the investment in renewable energy somewhere. So that can be the carbon offsetting is also can happen. Very soon India will also having a carbon market in India, because every factory can trade the carbon also. Carbon trading will be starting here. And if your factory is consuming more, you need to purchase carbon credit certificates from some other factory. If you're consuming less, you can sell it out to the other factory. So that is can also will happen. And the third is the policy advocacy and collaboration. So you can see the MSME required support from research institution, large firm, to assess the green technology in concession term. Capacity building program is required. Like today is a 1 hour session, but there is a workshop planning is required to do the training on MSME on this subject, how that industry association and crucial MSME to adopt green technology. Because green technology, once your demand will increase, this technology will be also cheaper. Like you can see an example by solar was very expensive 10 years back, but today it is very affordable to everyone. LED light 10 years back it is very expensive, but now today everyone purchase LED, because the demand should increase with the green technology. Of course the supply will go cost lower on that side. And this is and of course the finance also should come in the market to become net zero emission. So I was talking about the compliances. So this is kind of a reporting mechanism which we need to understand. There's a word, I'm sure most of you, if you are exporting your product, especially in the metal industry, if you are exporting in European Union, there is a word called CBAM came up, carbon border adjustment mechanism. It is program that aims to reduce carbon leakage by pricing. That actually means who we need to report. Like if you are a non-EU supplier, that means non-European Union supplier, and your buyer is in Europe, sitting in Germany, sitting in France or somewhere, and you are sending a material to him. If you don't have a compliance certificate for CBAM, you will not able to sell them. He or she will not purchase the material from you, and we need to understand this problem. So please understand, in the CBAM they talk about majorly on environment, they talk about majorly on carbon. So same like when you do the income tax reporting every year, there is a CA do the reporting, same the carbon emission or there's a report format which you need to fill it and submit to your customer. That is something the requirement already started in 2023 from the European Union. So you will not able to sell your product in that market, or you have to pay the penalty on it. If you sell, so you will not be very competitive in the market. Similarly, there is another mechanism that a lot of companies, multinational companies, are asking to you as a if you want to become their vendor or always be a vendor. Like because I'm working some of the multinational companies, and they are training their supply chain companies to do reporting. And what is the mechanism of reporting? there is a reporting called SBTI, Science Based Target Initiative. So Science Based Target Initiative is a joint initiative by the CDP, UN Global Compact, and World Resource Institute, and WWF. So of course, in this, they decide the method, they decide the validation process and institutional. So we need to do a reporting on net zero reporting or the carbon emission reporting with that way. And the other reporting mechanisms, they have a CDP, there's a GRI, which is very common. I think most of you might be heard who is working on it. So GRI is one of the reporting standard. There is a TCFD, the Task Force Climate Related Financial Disclosure, and very important is the BRSR reporting. Because if you have a listed company on SEBI, already SEBI has mandate to 1,000 listed companies on the Bombay Stock Exchange. They have given that everyone has to submit the BRSR every year on a Security Exchange Board by India. So it will be applicable in upcoming years for all five, I think around 4 to 5,000 companies as well. So, but this is a business responsibility and sustainability reporting. This is also the sometimes the people hear the ESG as a word, the environmental social governance. A lot of companies are reporting their ESG reporting every year. After so ESG same like CSR. Earlier we were talking about the CSR. There is another word called ESG, the environmental social governance, and this is kind of a mandatory for 1,000 companies in under registered on SEBI. They need to comply with that report. So what are the technology adoption and innovation? So I'm sure by you have seen this technologies, what you can implement at your factory level, which is very easy. Renewable energy on site, please do it. If your factory has not done it yet, in every state in India, please do it. It is a ROI should be the 3 to 4 or 5 years maximum. So why you are not investing? Because your energy cost will be reduced. So please invest some money on it, and already some policies are happening every state to state. So on site you can do. Similarly, the biogas and biomass energy system, we have other expert also in our panel that of course, who if you have any question related to that, you can ask after that in your comment box. And we have IoT, because a lot of time we are talking about the digitization industry 4.0. We are talking about the digitization, and digitization can happen with the equipment optimization. Sometime I have seen in some MSME, still the people think if they get more red or yellow, that means the this iron has been burnt properly. We why can't we depend on technology with the temperature? We should just put a sensor somewhere there. So IoT can do very easily, but we need to understand how we utilize at MSME level. Energy management system, because I have, you all agree with me, same like money, if you don't monitor the money, you cannot save the money. Same energy, if you don't monitor energy, you cannot save energy. Please put the energy management system in your factory so you can learn that how much energy you are wasting every single day, so you can save that money. And of course the collaboration and knowledge sharing is very very much required. Don't think if you have done a good thing, please make your case study and share with others, so they should follow what the, and the collaboration is required. If because as an India, if we want to be competitive for the countries exporting to the Europe or the US, we need to understand, we need to be collaborative approach we required. We should not be very competitive approach, because this is the market. All the Western countries are also looking that India is emerging in a big way, but India needs technology adoption. And the last not the least, the hydrogen. Now the every government is talking about the green hydrogen, and for industrial process, go in that direction for the hydrogen for industrial process as well. Some other technologies which are still working on it, the carbon capture, the storage, energy storage, also the people are talking about the carbon storage, people are talking about CCS and CCU. Blockchain technology for carbon accounting, this is upcoming. This of how the trading will happen, how the technology will happen. So these technology will be very transparent to record your carbon emission, to offset. So this is also coming up. Circular economy, I know that a lot of industries who are not following the EPR requirement, the extended producer responsibility, so they get also the legal notice from the environmental department. So circular economy, we need to understand how we can utilize the maximum from the waste. We should not send to the system, to the landfill, and that is something the resource optimization or our resource consumption should be minimized, and the waste generation should be minimized in that way. So advantage of transition to net zero. Of course, there's a several don't think whenever the new thing come, when 20 years back or 25 years back or 30 years back computer came up, a lot of people think that computer will change the job, they will lose the job, people will lose the job, this will definitely create a lot of problem. Initially everyone think the net zero carbon will definitely will lose our business will be, but actually this is not a way. If you optimize properly, it can reduce the energy cost, your energy cost of your factory can reduce, your supply chain will be very much optimized. You will not focus, if your factory is in Rajasthan and your raw material is coming from Tamil Nadu, you will find someone the raw material nearby in Rajasthan only. So that is the lot of transportation carbon emission you are doing, we can reduce that. Access to the green financing, government incentives, because government is already several states, they have an investment promotional scheme, and they are talking about the incentive on the green factories, they are talking about the green investment. So there is a enhanced market access, adaptation to the market trends, and the, of course reduce the regulatory risk, which is also the big area, the risk factor, everyone focus on it. So these are the major advantage of transitioning to net zero. So I think this is my entire presentation in the last 45 minutes, 46 minutes I have done. I would be more happy to have question and answer round for the next 10 minutes to, if any question, because we have other experts also from different subject. So if any question, anything, please feel free to write on the comments, or I would be more happy to answer it. I can see the lot of comments on it. Uh, Visible. Okay. Any question, please put on the comments box so I can answer it. But this is yes, of course, Anjuji. I think it should be our EDP courses. No, your sustainability is the need of an hour. I want to show the one video or simple. I think that is something I saw somewhere, and which I like more by the, and this is if we do not act at this moment, it actually impact on our future generation in upcoming days. And this is a very beautiful ad that I think prepared by, I'll show you that, uh, by the Tata Tea, I would say. I'm sure most of you must be have uh, seen it, but this is very impactful video by the young generation. So I'm just sharing the screen again to show you that I told you that I will show entire screen, okay, including the video system. So hope my screen is visible again. I'll show this video and audio for everyone. Think about your future generation. Think about your children's on that.
Welcome, parents. We are ready to begin. Kindly settle down.
Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water, but all the water had dried up. The world was now much hotter. So Jack and Jill sat on the hill. Their throats were so dry, they couldn't find a drop to drink. And one day, neither will I. मछली जल की थी रानी, जीवन उसका था पानी, पर पानी में प्लास्टिक फेंकते रहे हम, मछली को तरपते हुए बस देखते रहे हम। धीरे धीरे मर गई मछलियाँ सारी, रह गए बस फेंकी हुई चीजें हमारी। Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the smoggy sky, I have never seen you. I wonder why. The smoke, it makes my chest so tight. For every breath, I must fight. Mummies and daddies, आपके बचपन की फेवरेट पोएम्स बदल जाएंगी, क्योंकि हमारा बचपन क्लाइमेट चेंज की वजह से बदल रहा है। इससे लड़ने के लिए हम सबको चेंज होना पड़ेगा। जागो, जागो, जागो। क्लाइमेट चेंज से हम कैसे लड़ सकते हैं, जानिए।
So you can, I think this video was just too because I like that. Sorry. So this was the thing. I think I would be. Thank you so much for your time, listening patiently last 45 minutes. And I would be more happy to talk on more on this topic because this is very close to my heart. Last 15 years, I worked in this, and I can see 1 kWh of energy if you save in your factory, 900 gram of carbon emission. You can imagine we are the 699 lakh industries, MSMEs in India. If we do that, how much impact will happen for the country like India? So this is the impact we can create as a Laghu Udyog Bharati members. Thank you everyone. Thank you so much.
Insightful presentation. And I think from this presentation, it must be clear that how collectively SMEs have a big impact to make in this green space, in the sustainable development of this country. We are growing, we are a developing nation, but the collateral damage which has happened in the past by the developed world, we have to develop ourselves responsibly. So we cannot continue the same way as things have happened in the past years, because it's now or never. So therefore, we have to take it to the small and the medium and the micro industries to have sustainable practices. Then only Bharat can reach its goal of 2070. That is the only hope. And what legacy we leave for our next generation is in our hands as responsible citizens, as responsible companies. We SMEs have a big responsibility towards sustainability, sustainable development. So we, as a Aayam, Laghu Udyog Bharati's Aayam, we request and urge everyone to work together towards this goal. And wherever we as an Aayam can help as a group, we will always be working towards all the stakeholders, bringing them together and finding solutions to the problems that are coming up. It is a need to work together on this sustainability. It is our sustainability. It is our world. It is our India. It is our Bharat. Even though we feel some difficulties, but we must overcome. We cannot look individually upon ourselves. We should look as a nation. We should find solutions everywhere, and we should have an internal urge to walk towards sustainability. Thank you, Ashuji. Thank you, everyone, for being part of this session. Thank you very much. Namaskar from Laghu Udyog Bharati.